Mondays were always the same. Wake up at 6:30, shower, toast 2 slices of bread, one with peanut butter, one with butter and honey. I'd pack my lunch while Danielle got ready upstairs, always leaving a trail of perfume and hair straightener fumes behind her. We didn't talk much in the mornings anymore, but we still did the goodbye dance. "Have a great day, babe," she called from the front door, all cheerful and saccharine. I glanced up from tying my shoes. "You too." She smiled, but it was that tight, fake kind of smile, like the ones politicians wear on TV. Her voice had that edge again, chirpy but off-key, and the way she cocked her head as she said it, almost like she was mocking me. It wasn't new. I'd been seeing that smirk more often lately, that look that hovered between pity and boredom. Still, I kissed her on the cheek. Routine. She pulled away faster than usual. "Try not to stress too much today, okay? Wouldn't want you to overheat the spreadsheets." Then she was gone, heels tapping like gunshots down the walkway. I stood there a second too long before grabbing my keys. "My name's Caleb Marsh. I'm 41. I live in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and I've been an accountant at the same firm for almost 19 years. I don't hate my life, but I've stopped loving it, if that makes sense. Some mornings, I catch myself looking at the bathroom mirror like I don't fully recognize the guy on the other side. By the time I got to work, I'd mostly pushed the weird tension with Danielle to the back of my mind. I had quarterly reports to finish, and Henry was expecting updated client summaries. Around 10:30, I was staring at a spreadsheet when I felt it, this sharp, hot jolt in my lower stomach, like someone had jammed a wire brush through my insides. I gasped and shot up from my chair, knocking my coffee over. I staggered down the hallway, clutching my gut, hoping no one noticed. I barely made it into the men's room. I'll spare the details, but something was wrong. Very wrong. After what felt like forever, I washed my hands and splashed cold water on my face. My reflection looked pale, sweaty. My stomach was still churning. When I came out, Henry was waiting by my cubicle. "You okay, Caleb? You look like hell." I forced a nod. Something's off." He frowned. "Go to a clinic. Seriously. I'll cover for you. Don't mess around with this kind of stuff." So I left, still clutching my gut, still dizzy with a worry I couldn't name yet. But that Monday was only getting started. The clinic was less than 10 minutes from the office. One of those walk-ins with dusty fake plants in the corners and magazines 3 years out of date. I checked in, filled out the clipboard, and sat under a flickering fluorescent light, trying not to think too hard about what just happened in the office restroom. I told myself it was stress, that maybe I hadn't been drinking enough water, that it was something mild. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. When the nurse called my name, she barely looked at me. She was young, with a nose ring and a tired voice. She weighed me, took my blood pressure, asked if I was sexually active, and when I said yes, monogamously, for 16 years, she gave a polite grunt and tapped her tablet. After a quick urine test and a bit more waiting, a man in a white coat entered. Dr. Caldwell. Late 40s, salt and pepper beard, tired eyes like he'd already seen too much for one day. "So, Mr. Marsh," he began, glancing at his screen. "You're experiencing abdominal pain, discomfort during urination, some discharge?" I nodded. "This morning, yeah. It was sudden." He nodded, tapping the tablet. "Okay. Well, the results came back quicker than I expected. I'm going to be direct with you, because it's best we don't dance around this." I sat up a little straighter. "You tested positive for chlamydia." At first, I thought I misheard him. I blinked. "What? Chlamydia?" he repeated. "It's a common sexually transmitted infection, treatable with antibiotics, but still, needs to be taken seriously." "No, there has to be a mistake," I said quickly, shaking my head. "I've only ever been with my wife. We've been married 16 years. I've never." He paused. "Sometimes it's asymptomatic for a while. It's possible your wife mistook symptoms for a urinary tract infection, which happens. I'd recommend she get tested immediately. If untreated, it can cause more serious issues." The room started to tilt. My ears rang. I tried to stay calm, but my throat felt tight. "I'm not the one who cheated," I finally said, my voice hollow. Dr. Caldwell gave a tight nod. "Then I'd strongly recommend a conversation with your partner. And again, antibiotics will clear this up in most cases, but I'll write a prescription today, and we'll follow up with a full screening just to be sure." I nodded, though I wasn't really hearing him anymore. Afterward, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, barely blinking. Chlamydia. Not food poisoning. Not a rogue coffee. No. A line in the sand. I finally called Henry. My voice cracked on the first try. He answered immediately. "You okay?" I need some time," I said. "It's not good. Whatever it is, take the week. Longer if needed. I'll keep it quiet." I hung up, grateful but numb. Because now I had a new problem. Not just an infection. A betrayal. And I was going to have to go home and ask the woman I thought I knew what the hell she'd done to our marriage. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I drove for over an hour, past towns I barely recognized, until I pulled into the same long driveway I'd been parking in since I was 17. My parents' house in Bordentown. Still modest, still decorated with ceramic angels and cross-stitch verses, still smelling faintly like cinnamon and pine sol. Mom met me at the door before I even knocked. "Caleb," she said, startled. "Are you all right? What's wrong?" I hadn't called ahead. I didn't have to. She always knew when something was off. "Just needed to talk," I said quietly. She stepped aside, waving me in. "Your father's in the den. Come sit." Dad was in his recliner, reading the paper, still wearing his thick glasses and an old Eagles sweatshirt. He looked up when he saw me. His brow furrowed immediately. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I sat on the couch. My hands wouldn't stop moving. On my knees, on the seams of my jeans, on the couch cushion beside me. Mom came in with a mug of tea like muscle memory and sat beside me. No one said anything for a minute. Then I spoke. "I went to the clinic today. Something felt off. Real pain this morning. Figured it was stress or stomach stuff." Both of them leaned in slightly. "They ran tests," I said, "and the doctor told me I have chlamydia." The words landed like bricks. My mom's eyes widened. Dad sat straighter. Neither spoke right away. I rushed to explain. "I've never cheated. Ever. Not even close. I don't go anywhere. You know me. Danielle's the only person I've ever been with since college." Mom covered her mouth. Her voice broke on the inhale. "Oh, honey." Dad's jaw clenched hard. His knuckles went white on the arms of the recliner. "Did you ask her?" he said, voice low. "Not yet," I said. "But I know. The doctor said she probably thought it was a UTI. That means she's had it for a while." Mom looked down at her lap, hands shaking. "She lied. All this time she lied. She's been cold for a while now," I admitted. "But I didn't think. I never thought it was this." Dad nodded slowly, his mouth tight. "You need a lawyer." "I don't want to jump into that." "Caleb," he cut me off, steady and calm. "This isn't about jumping. This is about protecting yourself. Your daughters. Your future." Mom finally looked at me. Her eyes were wet, but fierce. "Do the girls know anything?" "Not yet," I said. "I won't tell them unless I have to." "You need help," she said. "Sylvia Keller. Remember her? From church? She does family law now. Has an office in Haddonfield." I nodded, trying to keep my face steady. But the tears surprised me. Quiet, hot, bitter. I hadn't cried in years. Dad stood, walked over, and put his hand on my shoulder. "Don't act out in anger," he said. "Don't stoop to her level. But you fight smart. And you don't let this crush you." That was the moment I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. My marriage was dying. But I wasn't going to let it take me down with it. The house felt different when I walked in. Like something in the walls knew. Danielle wasn't home. She'd left a note on the fridge, scrawled in her businesslike handwriting. "Client dinner tonight. Don't wait up. D. No heart. No love you. Just initials." Cold as ever. I went upstairs, pulled off my button-down, and changed into something more comfortable. Then I sat down at the desk in our home office and opened my laptop. Not for work. Not this time. I typed in the login for our joint tax records. It wasn't the first time I'd looked at our finances, but it was the first time I was hunting. Looking for something ugly, something hiding in plain sight. It didn't take long to find. Danielle had been filing separately for the last 3 years. My stomach tightened. We never talked about that. And worse, there were deposits I didn't recognize. Unexplained income, listed as consulting stipends, going into an account I'd never seen before. I dug deeper. Bank statements. Transfer logs. Bit by bit, I followed the digital breadcrumbs. And there it was, a private checking account in her name only, linked to a savings account in Delaware. Together, the balance hovered just under $800,000. $800,000. I sat back in the chair, stunned. That was more than we had in our shared accounts. More than I'd ever seen her earn. Then I opened her work calendar. Synced to her Outlook. Color-coded blocks filled the screen: conferences, marketing retreats, dinners. But now I saw the pattern. Most of the retreats were at high-end resorts. Repeated bookings in places like Scottsdale, Palm Springs, Napa. Most fell on the same week she'd told me she was burned out and needed space to focus. I stared at the screen for a long time, heart hammering. She hadn't just cheated. She'd planned around it. She'd hidden money, traveled with someone else, built a whole separate life while I stayed home, packed school lunches, folded laundry, and told myself every marriage hits a dry spell. My phone buzzed. A text from Danielle. "Running late. Might stay over in the city if dinner goes long. Don't wait up." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a drawer and pulled out the small black binder where we kept our financial documents, passports, birth certificates, retirement statements. I started making copies. Because whatever Danielle thought she was doing behind my back, she wasn't getting away with it anymore. And tomorrow, I had an appointment with Sylvia Keller. Sylvia Keller didn't waste time. Her office was in a quiet brick building just off Kings Highway in Haddonfield. No fancy lobby, no pretentious art. Just a nameplate on the door and a wall of books behind her desk. She stood when I walked in, gave me a firm handshake, and gestured for me to sit. "You look like a man who's been holding a grenade for too long," she said, no smile. I managed a tight laugh. "It's been a week." We got right into it. I told her everything about the diagnosis, the hidden accounts, the separate tax filings. I even brought copies of Danielle's work calendar and screenshots of the bank balances. Sylvia flipped through the paperwork, nodding occasionally, her pen scratching notes in a tidy, efficient script. When I mentioned our daughters, Sophie and Lila, 15 and 13, her eyes sharpened. "Have they been pulled into any of this yet?" "Not directly," I said. "But they've noticed Danielle being distracted, absent. They've asked questions." "Good," she said. "That tells me they're paying attention." She leaned back and tapped her pen against her notepad. "Here's the deal. This isn't just infidelity, it's financial fraud. You've got leverage, and if she pushes back, we'll push harder. First, I'll file for divorce and request full custody. We'll also freeze any shared assets immediately. That'll stop her from draining the accounts. Second, I'm going to recommend bringing in a private investigator. Someone who can get us photos, timestamps, maybe even names." I nodded. "I already have something else." I pulled out my phone and opened the tracking app I'd installed almost 6 months ago. I told myself it was just paranoia back then. Danielle's late nights, the vague answers, the sudden weekend trips, but now it felt like self-preservation. "Find my phone?" Sylvia asked, leaning in. "Something more discreet," I said. I showed her the screen. It pulsed with a location just outside of Trenton. She said she was at a client dinner in Philly, I added. Sylvia grinned. "She's not even trying to lie well." I clicked the pin. The address led to a residential neighborhood. Not a hotel, not a restaurant. Just a plain 2-story house on a cul-de-sac with trimmed hedges and a red mailbox. "Can you get a name for that address?" I asked. Sylvia nodded. "Give me half an hour." We spent the rest of the meeting going over documentation. She asked about my girls again, who they were closest to, whether they'd be willing to stay with me full-time if it came to that. I told her yes, that they were already halfway there emotionally. "They're good girls," I said. "Better than I probably deserve." "Caleb," she said, putting down her pen, "you didn't cause this. You're reacting to it. Don't confuse the two." She gave me a folder with preliminary paperwork and a list of things to collect. Updated bank statements, school records, insurance policies. At the bottom of the checklist was a sticky note in red ink. "Start protecting your daughters. Today." By the time I left her office, the sun was low in the sky. I sat in my car and stared at the little blinking blue dot on my phone again. Still at that same address. Still lying. That night, I didn't confront Danielle. I didn't slam doors or yell. I just tucked my daughters into bed, sat at the dining table, and printed copies of everything I had. Because now, I had a lawyer, a tracker, and a plan. And she had no idea I was already 5 moves ahead. The private investigator moved fast. Sylvia's guy, Paul Vetro, was ex-law enforcement, gruff, quiet, professional. Within 4 days, he had a full report in my inbox and a flash drive hand-delivered in a plain manila envelope. He didn't linger. Just handed it to me on my front porch and said, "Watch it alone. Twice, if you can stomach it." I waited until the girls were asleep. I sat at my desk, the door shut tight, and slipped the drive into my laptop. First came the photos. Danielle outside the house I'd tracked. Same address. Different nights. Sometimes she showed up in a sleek trench coat, other times in yoga pants. Hair in a ponytail, no makeup. Comfortable. Familiar. Like she lived there. There was a man, too. Early 40s, sharp suit. Arms around her waist in one photo, his hand down the back of her jeans in another. Then came the audio. It was recorded from a hidden mic Paul had planted in the car she parked in the driveway. A crisp 30-minute conversation from a Tuesday night. I'd thought she was working late. Her voice came through first. Danielle, laughing. "Oh my God, Caleb still thinks I'm going to networking dinners." I swear, the man could walk into a burning building and blame the thermostat. The guy snorted. "Does he know yet?" "Nope, not a clue. I mean, I gave him chlamydia for God's sake, and he still plays house like nothing's happening." I froze. She said it out loud, not even shamefully, like it was a punchline. "Why don't you just leave him already?" the guy asked. She sighed. "Because I need the stability until the girls are gone. Sophie's got 2 years left. Lila's close behind. I'm not paying alimony on top of tuition. Once they're in college, I'm out." I leaned back in my chair. My chest was hollow. My hands tingled. I didn't blink for nearly a minute. The worst part wasn't the affair. It wasn't even the disease. It was hearing her talk about me, about our daughters, with such calculated cruelty. Like we were pawns in a chess match she was playing solo. And then she dropped the final bomb. "I don't even know if Caleb's their dad," she said, her voice quieter. Especially Sophie. That was around the time I was seeing Marcus. But whatever. It doesn't matter. It mattered. I sat in that chair for almost an hour, just staring at the screen. I'd suspected betrayal, sure. But not this. Not decades of it. Not the possibility that the girls, my girls, might not be biologically mine. Still, I had to know. The next day, I picked up 2 paternity kits from a lab in Marlton. I waited until Saturday afternoon when the girls were both home, casually doing homework in the kitchen. I asked them to come talk to me in the living room. I need to ask something, I said, careful not to look too serious. Something private, and a little strange. They both blinked at me. Would you be willing to do a quick DNA test with me? I asked, just to confirm something. It's not about you. It's for peace of mind. They exchanged a look. Sophie was the first to nod. Yeah, okay. Is everything all right? I forced a smile. It will be. I swabbed the inside of their cheeks gently and sealed the envelopes. They didn't press for more, though Lila lingered a bit after. Is this about Mom? She asked quietly. I didn't answer, because deep down, they already knew. And I wasn't just trying to confirm paternity anymore. I was bracing myself for the fallout of everything Danielle had built and was about to lose. Danielle didn't come home Friday night. She texted just before midnight, staying at the city apartment. Long day. Need sleep. No apology. No emoji. Just distance. Cold, mechanical distance. Saturday came and went with no word. By Sunday morning, even Sophie noticed. Is Mom coming back today? She asked over breakfast, poking at her cereal with no appetite. I'm not sure, I said. She's been busy. It was a lie, but it sounded better than the truth. By Sunday night, the silence was starting to gnaw at me. I called. Straight to voicemail. I texted once, just checking in. Let me know you're all right. Nothing. It was past 11 when my phone finally rang. Unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Mr. Marsh. Yes. This is Officer Trenton from St. Anthony's Medical Center. Your wife, Danielle Marsh, was admitted about 2 hours ago. She was struck by a vehicle near Spring and 3rd. Hit and run. She's in critical condition, currently in the ICU. I went cold. What? What kind of condition? She's stable for now, but unresponsive. No brain activity yet. The doctor can explain more when you arrive. We found your number listed under emergency contact. My first instinct was to ask if it was a mistake. If somehow they'd called the wrong man. Because a part of me didn't want to believe it. The same part that had listened to that recording just days earlier, watching the woman I married slowly burn the foundation of our life down. And now she was in a hospital bed, unconscious. Possibly dying. I told the girls I had to step out. I didn't say where. I drove to St. Anthony's in a fog, the lights of the highway blurring like smeared paint. The waiting room was quiet, fluorescent, humming with muted dread. A nurse led me through the ICU ward. Danielle lay in a hospital bed, pale and still, her face framed by wires and tape. A machine beeped steadily by her head. Her right leg was wrapped in a splint. Her lip was cracked. Her wedding ring had been cut off at the ER, now resting in a small plastic tray beside the bed. A doctor in navy scrubs stepped beside me. She has a fractured skull, for broken ribs, internal bleeding. We've done what we can, but she's unresponsive. The next 72 hours are critical. I nodded slowly, numb. Then he added, her tox screen came back, complicated. There are markers suggesting potential immune deficiency. We'd like to run an HIV panel, just to be safe. I looked at him. HIV. It's precautionary. But yes. I swallowed. Hard. Has she been tested before? We have no record of it. Then do it. He gave a tight nod and walked away. I sat in the chair beside her bed and stared at her. This woman who had destroyed me in silence, who'd mocked me behind closed doors, who might have risked my health and our daughter's future, and now lay so still she barely seemed real. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out a plain manila envelope, and placed it on the tray. Inside were the divorce papers, the financial records, a few printed photos, her wedding rings. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I just sat there in silence, watching the woman I once loved breathe through a machine. I wasn't sure what I felt. Pity? Relief? Grief? Probably all of it, tangled together like a wire that had finally snapped. I stayed 10 minutes. Then I stood, turned, and walked away. The choice had already been made. Now it was just a matter of living with it. Danielle spent 5 days in the ICU. On the 6th day, she woke up. The nurses called early that morning. She was stable, responsive, and speaking, though weak. No memory of the accident, but enough clarity to ask for her phone. I didn't bring it. Not yet. I waited until the girls left for school, then picked up Carla, Danielle's younger sister, from the train station. Carla knew everything now. After the accident, I told her the truth. About the affair. The hidden money. The STD. She didn't even flinch. Just sat in stunned silence, then said, "Let me know when you're ready to cut her off. I'll be there." We walked into Danielle's recovery room together. She was propped up in bed, pale and bruised, but alert. The heart monitor beeped steadily beside her. When she saw us, her eyes welled. "Caleb," she whispered. "Carla, you're awake," I said simply. She reached for my hand, but I didn't move. She hesitated, then let hers fall back to the blanket. "I was so scared," she said. "I don't remember what happened. They said I was hit by a drunk driver?" "Yeah," Carla replied, arms crossed. "That's the least of your problems." Danielle blinked, confused. "What?" I pulled a chair close to the bed. Sat down slowly. I set a white envelope on the bedside table, the same one I'd left days earlier. "I figured you might not remember this," I said. "Those are the divorce papers. Signed. Filed. Effective pinning your signature." She stared at it. "You're serious?" "I'm not here for closure. I'm here for logistics," I said calmly. "The accounts are frozen. Half of our assets are now held in trust. I've retained custody of the girls. I'm not contesting shared visitation, assuming you cooperate." Danielle's mouth parted, like she was searching for air. "Wait, you've already filed?" Carla stepped forward. "He's done, Danny. You lost the right to act surprised the minute you brought that disease into the house." "I didn't mean for any of that to happen," Danielle said quickly, tears springing up. "It got out of hand. I wasn't thinking clearly." I shook my head. "You were thinking clearly enough to open separate accounts, fly to retreats, and laugh behind my back." "I didn't laugh," she snapped, then caught herself. "We have audio," Carla said. "Your voice. Mocking him. Questioning the girl's paternity. Saying you'd leave once they were gone." Danielle crumbled. She started sobbing, hand over her mouth. "I made mistakes," she choked out. "I know I did. I was trying to fix things. But then the accident, and now I don't know where to begin." "You don't get to begin," I said, standing. "You get to cooperate." "I want to talk to the girls," she pleaded. "Please. Let me explain." "They'll decide that for themselves," I replied. "When they're ready." I nodded to Carla. She pulled a small folder from her purse and handed it to Danielle. "What's this?" she asked, wiping her face. "Your new apartment," I said. "First 2 months paid, out of your half of the assets. You'll find clothes, basic supplies, and your phone charger there." Danielle stared at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. Maybe she didn't. I didn't either, sometimes. As we walked toward the door, a process server in a navy blazer stepped into the room. Calm, efficient. "Danielle Marsh," he said, offering a sealed envelope. "You've been served." She took it with trembling hands. "I turned once before leaving. You gambled everything on a lie. I'm just cashing out." Then Carla and I walked away, quiet, steady, and for the first time in years, in full control. Weeks passed. The divorce was finalized without a courtroom battle. Danielle didn't contest. Sylvia said it was the cleanest breakup she'd ever seen for a marriage so messy. She called it surgical. Precise, controlled, permanent. The DNA results came in 2 days before the hearing. Both girls were mine. I sat on the edge of the bed, letter in hand, and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for years. Not because I ever doubted them, but because I needed confirmation that something in my life had been real. I moved Danielle's belongings into a modest 1-bedroom in Pensacola. Nothing fancy. Paid for with her half of our liquidated savings. I left it clean and quiet, a duffel bag by the door with folded clothes, chargers, toiletries. The kind of send-off you'd give to a distant relative, not someone you'd once dreamed about growing old with. Danielle recovered physically. Her limp faded, the bruises softened. She went back to her firm, though at a lower position. Apparently, the accident and the scandal had been noticed. She started living a smaller life, one that didn't include high-end client dinners or spontaneous retreats to Napa. To her credit, she reached out to the girls respectfully. It started with short messages. "Danielle, thinking of you. Hope school's going okay. Sophie, thanks. I'm fine. Danielle, would love to take you both to lunch sometime, if that's okay." Lila ignored her for the first few weeks. Sophie responded sparingly, but without malice. Eventually, they agreed to a coffee, then a walk at the park. Danielle never pushed. She never cried or begged. I think she knew the damage was too deep for that now. We had a new routine at home. I started making dinner most nights. Nothing fancy, spaghetti, stir-fry, chicken in the oven, but we sat at the table together. Talked more. Laughed more. There were nights when I'd walk past Sophie's room and hear her giggling on a video call with her best friend, or see Lila on the couch sketching while music played softly. Normal things. Things I hadn't realized we were missing. One Saturday afternoon, we took a trip down to Cape May. Just the 3 of us. We walked the beach barefoot, grabbed fish tacos, and watched the sun sink behind the horizon like it was performing for us. That night, while brushing her teeth, Lila looked at me through the mirror and said, "You seem lighter, Dad. Like, not heavy anymore." I smiled, toothpaste still foaming. "I think I am." Danielle wasn't a monster. She was human. Flawed, selfish, and reckless. but she'd made her bed, and I wasn't crawling into it with her anymore. Instead, I was building something new, with my daughters, with my dignity, and with a sense of peace I hadn't known I was missing. The past still echoed, but the door was closed and locked. It started with coffee after Sunday service. I hadn't been to church in a while, not since before everything exploded, but the girls wanted to go. So we did. Just the three of us, sitting in the back pew, quietly singing hymns I barely remembered. The sermon was on second chances. I almost laughed. Afterward, while we stood outside sipping coffee from paper cups, someone tapped me on the shoulder. "Caleb Marsh," a soft voice said. I turned. It was Tessa Rowe. We'd crossed paths a few times over the years. She'd lost her husband 4 years back, some kind of rare heart condition. She had a son around Lila's age and a warmth in her eyes that made it easy to breathe around her. "Tessa," I said, genuinely surprised. "Hey, I wasn't sure if it was you," she said, smiling gently. "Glad to see you here." "Trying to get back into things," I said. "The girls dragged me." She laughed. "That sounds familiar." We talked for maybe 10 minutes. Nothing heavy. Just light conversation about school events and who still made the best peach cobbler at potlucks. She asked how I was doing, and I gave the kind of answer that didn't lie but didn't overshare either. Later that night, I found her name in the church directory and sent a quick message. "Me, coffee next Sunday again? I'll bring the good stuff this time." She replied 10 minutes later. "Tessa, only if you promise not to talk about accounting the whole time." Me, I can't promise that, but I'll try. We met the next week at Grounds and Grace, a local cafe 2 blocks from the church. I showed up early, nervous in a way I hadn't felt since college. She came in wearing a simple blue blouse, hair tucked back, smile easy. And just like that, it didn't feel complicated. We talked for almost 2 hours. About parenting, about loneliness, about how sometimes surviving a hard season doesn't mean you're healed, it just means you're still here. At one point, I mentioned Danielle. Not in detail, just enough for context. Tessa didn't flinch, didn't pry, just said, "I think it's brave, the way you've protected your daughters." That stopped me. I hadn't thought of it as brave. Necessary, maybe. Survival, sure. But brave? "Thanks," I said quietly. "That means more than you know." She sipped her coffee. "So, dinner sometime?" I blinked. "Are you asking me out?" "I'm letting you take the credit." I laughed, really laughed, and nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." It was small, simple, nothing dramatic. But it was real, not built on lies, not hiding in shadows. Just 2 people sitting across from each other. No masks, no hidden accounts, no secret lives. It wasn't a new love story yet, but maybe it was the start of one. And for the first time in a long time, I was okay with starting over. Hopeful, even.